you know the Hunter laptop story, right? So Hunter Biden is the son of the president. He was using his father for influence, right, to get jobs and to do nefarious shit in China and Ukraine. And he had an $80,000 a month job on an energy board in Ukraine. Ukraine, the most corrupt country in Europe. The vice president of the United States, who was in charge of Ukraine for the United States, his son got a job, 80 grand a month on an energy board. Huh. Sounds like it's on the up and up. So his laptop, he's he has drug problems. He's a cracky, right? He does the crackhead, and no judgment there, but for the grace of God. And but he brought his laptop to a repair place, and the repair place, he left it. He never came back for it. So then that was a real story of what the contents were, because it could show that Joe Biden, who's about to be president, has been in some illegal, corrupt shit. They suppressed that story. Glenn Greenwald had to leave The Intercept because they wouldn't let him write about that story. They kicked you off Twitter if you talked about that story, and Facebook. They suppressed the Daily News. Or was it the Post? New York Post. One of those. I think it was the New York Post. They suppressed their Twitter account. They couldn't get into it. Now here is Zuckerberg, Mark Zuckerberg, the guy who runs Facebook, he's going to tell you why they suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story. Even though it's a 100% accurate story, it wasn't disinformation, it wasn't a Russian psyop, it wasn't anything. It was just a real story that the establishment suppressed and censored. Why? Well, here we go.
How do you guys handle things when they're a big news item that's controversial? Like, there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York Post.
Yeah, we had that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. I mean, basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team, and was like, hey, just so you know, like, you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to...
by the way, there wasn't a lot of propaganda from Russia during the 2016 election. Now, we've talked about this and we've debunked this many times. Other people still act like this. They act like there was some overwhelm. There was $100,000 spent on Facebook, half of it after the election, and that's what he's referring. That's what the FBI refers to. So people just make up this story, and then it gets repeated, and he's repeating it here. Okay, this is one of the only few places in the whole goddamn world where we will debunk that. Okay.
Be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And
yes, they do. And they've already admitted that their third-party fact-checking system isn't really a fact-checking system at all. It's just political opinions. I'm going to show you that later, but let's keep going.
For I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it. You could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but
I don't know. We just suppress it. We just censor it. We just keep it from people. We're manipulating what people get to see and what they don't see. How many percentage? I don't know. 99? Maybe. 100%? I don't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't know how much they're censoring at Facebook. I don't know. But we are censoring. How much? Who cares? Is it that important? You don't think they know exactly how much? They know.
It's meaningful. But I mean, but basically a lot of people were still able to share it. We got a lot of complaints that was the case. Obviously this is a hyper political issue. So depending on what side of the political spectrum, you either think we didn't censor it enough or censored it way too much. But we weren't sort of as black and white about it as Twitter. We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's like very...
They don't have a history of doing nefarious shit at all, except 100%. And in fact, they're the ones who got caught lying during Russiagate, not Trump. It was the FBI who lied to the FISA court to get about the dossier so they could get a tap on Trump's phone. And they did it. They lied. That's the FBI that he's taking as a legitimate. Okay, here we go.
Professional law enforcement. If they come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
Did they specifically say you need to be on guard about that story?
No, I don't remember if it was that specifically, but it basically fit the pattern.
What?
So what I said, I tweeted this out. It said, nothing to see here. Just a billionaire with a monopoly on information was censoring accurate news stories at the behest of the FBI to favor a political party and a political outcome. That's what was happening. That's what the FBI was doing. The FBI was a political actor here. They've been a political actor through this whole Russiagate thing, and they're always a political actor. We've showed you the videotapes where the former second in command at the FBI admitted that it was their charge, it was their duty to make sure progressives and socialists didn't get elected in the United States. It was their job to plant fake stories and smear them. The FBI is always political. So the FBI was acting in a political nature to try to rig an outcome of an election. And Zuckerberg went along with it. And they go, well, they're the government. What he's saying is they're a crime organization. They're a law enforcement organization. So I have to defer to them. They're the government. That's who they are. They're the government with a long, long, long history of lying. And that's why you don't listen to them. That's why you be skeptical of them. They said there was weapons of mass destruction. You going to censor the people who say there aren't because the FBI said to? Yes, they would. That's what he's saying. Yes, I would. Matt Taibbi, legit journalist, says, how is this not a huge story? It's not a huge story because the establishment doesn't want it to be a huge story. And they're going to make you look like a conspiracy theorist, crazy kook person, Trumper, if you have a problem with this, with a guy who has monopoly on information, censoring accurate news stories at the behest of the government. If you have a problem with that, you're some kind of crazy Trumper. That's what they'll tell you. This is how they rig elections, and it's not just the Hunter Biden story. Can someone quickly explain what is supposed to be so damning on the non-tampered files of the abandoned laptop? Okay, well, first of all, we'll do this. The laptop is by far the secondary issue. The real problem is the FBI stepping in to cut the distribution of a true story. That's the problem. He's just casually admitting the suppressing factual information for the FBI as if it's perfectly normal and a fine thing to do. He's not even trying to hide it. That's the problem. Fascism equals corporatism because it's the merger of state and corporate power. That's what we just witnessed. That is the merger of state and corporate power. That's what that is. When they censor you on Twitter, when they censor you on Facebook, that is the merger of corporate and state power. This is literally what this is, but he just casually admitting it, though, as if this is sane and rational. And he said, we give it out to a third-party fact-checking organization. Now, that's bullshit. That Facebook wants they don't want to be held accountable for censoring, so they farm it out to third parties that they handpick, which are coming right from the government and the billionaire oligarchy. Most of the fact-checking organizations Facebook uses in Ukraine are directly funded by Washington. They're not using fact. These aren't fact. These are establishment narrative controllers. These aren't fact checkers at Facebook like he wants you to think. Those aren't fact checkers. Conflict of interest with Facebook censorship, the Atlantic Council, Burisma, and politics. That's who's doing the censoring. How fact checkers pressure its fact check. How Facebook pressures its fact checkers. As Facebook struggles with waves of misinformation, the company's political and business concerns are influencing its fact-checking policies. Those aren't fact checks. Facebook says it's deleting accounts at the direction of the U.S. and Israeli governments. That's a real story. That's from 2017. This isn't new. This is what they do. This is called fascism. That's what it is. You want real fascism? This is it. Max Blumenthal says, I've noticed a lot of Palestinians are complaining that their Instagram and Facebook posts on Jerusalem and Save Sheikh Jarrah have been limited or eliminated. I wonder if the Israeli censor on Facebook's oversight board, Emmy Palmore, is playing a role. So on Facebook's oversight board, they have an Israeli censor. And of course, here's that story. Facebook admits the truth. Fact checkers are really just lefty opinion. And it's not lefty opinion. It's just opinion. It's opinion funded by billionaires and the military-industrial complex. That's who Facebook's fact checkers are. You ever see Facebook or factcheck.org or PolitiFact? Look into who funds them. Who do you think funds them? The same billionaires we debunk here at this show. People like Bill and Melinda Gates fund them. People like the Koch brothers fund them. That's who's funding those fact-checking organizations. People, George Soros, people like that. Those aren't neutral fact-checking organizations. Those are billionaire-funded with a political narrative to push. And that's what they're doing. And so by censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story, they are pushing a political narrative and censoring another one. That, to me, sounds like election rigging being done by social media companies, not Russia. You mean right here in the United States, our own social media companies are doing election rigging? You mean like Facebook and Twitter? Yes, that's what it sounds like to me. It's not Russia rigging the election. Russia didn't rig the election. It looks like Facebook and Twitter were pushing for a political outcome at the behest of the government and influencing the election doing it. Apparently, that's okay. Apparently, that's okay. That's okay for you to, because you can't say anything about the election. If they do, they'll shut you down. But apparently, Facebook and Twitter, they're allowed to be political actors and get in bed with the government and censor people at the behest of the government. So there you go. Keep voting blue. Hey, we're coming to Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Detroit, Los Angeles, Spokane, Tacoma, Denver. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all our tickets for all our live shows. See you there.